Imagine you're arriving at a lonely lighthouse, miles from anywhere, a single stone tower standing against the vast, empty ocean. You expect to be greeted, to hear voices, to see signs of life. But instead, you find nothing, no people, no footsteps. Just an eerie, heavy silence. This isn't the opening scene of a horror film. It has a real-life mystery that has baffled historians and investigators for over a century, the vanishing of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers. It all started on December 26, 1900. The relief vessel, the Hesperus, was making its way through the choppy waters of the North Atlantic to the remote Flannan Isles, a rugged cluster of rocks off the western coast of Scotland. On board, Captain Jim Harvey was expecting the usual routine: drop off supplies and a fresh keeper, and pick up one of the men for their shore leave. The three keepers stationed there were seasoned men of the sea: Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur. But as the Hesperus approached the island of Eilean Mor, a sense of unease settled over the crew. The first sign something was terribly wrong was the lighthouse itself. It was dark. Its powerful lamp, which should have been a piercing beacon visible for miles, was unlit, and it had been that way for days. The island's flagpole, where the keepers were supposed to fly a flag to signal that all was well, was bare. Captain Harvey sounded the ship's horn and fired a flare, hoping to get a response. But the only reply was the cry of seabirds and the crashing of waves against the cliffs. No one emerged from the lighthouse. No one came down to the landing stage. A small relief party, led by the replacement keeper Joseph Moore, was sent ashore. The moment Moore stepped onto the island, he said he felt a dreadful sense of foreboding. The landing stage was in disarray. Ropes and a supply box were strewn about, as if tossed by a powerful force. As they made their way up the steep path to the lighthouse, the feeling of dread grew stronger. The main entrance gate was closed, and so was the door to the lighthouse itself. They had to force it open. Inside, the scene was even more chilling. The living quarters were tidy, almost unnaturally so. The beds were neatly made. The clocks had all stopped. In the kitchen, a half-eaten meal of salted mutton and potatoes sat cold on the table. A chair overturned, as if someone had jumped up in a hurry. It was as if the men had simply vanished in the middle of their dinner. The only sign of life was a lone canary, still alive in its cage, chirping softly. The men searched the small island, calling out the names of Marshall, Duckett, and MacArthur, but there was no answer. The only things missing from the lighthouse were 2 sets of oilskins, the heavy, waterproof coats worn by the keepers, and a pair of boots. One set of oilskins had been left behind, meaning one of the men had gone outside into the harsh Atlantic weather without his protective gear. This was completely against regulations and common sense for these experienced men. The mystery deepened when they discovered the lighthouse logbook. The entries were written by Thomas Marshall, the second assistant. The first few days seemed normal, but then the tone shifted dramatically. On December 12th, Marshall wrote of a severe storm, with winds the likes of which he had never seen before. He described James Duckett, the principal keeper, as being very quiet, and Donald MacArthur, a famously tough and seasoned mariner, as crying. This was shocking. MacArthur was a veteran sailor, known for his brawling and resilience. The idea of him breaking down in tears was almost unbelievable. The log entries for the next 2 days continued to describe this terrifying storm. Marshall wrote that the 3 men had been praying, huddled together, as the tempest raged outside. The final, cryptic entry was on December 15th. It simply read, "Storm ended, sea calm." God is over all, but here's where the story takes a truly bizarre turn. When investigators later checked the meteorological records for the area, they found no reports of any storms between December 12th and 14th. In fact, the weather was reportedly calm. Ships that had sailed through the area during those days reported clear skies and tranquil seas. So what storm were the keepers writing about? Was it a localized, freak weather event missed by all official records? Or was it something else entirely, a storm of the mind? The official inquiry, conducted by the Northern Lighthouse Board, concluded that the men were likely swept away by a freak wave. The theory goes that on the afternoon of December 15th, after the supposed storm, 2 of the men went down to the western landing to secure a crate. A massive, unexpected wave surged up the cliff face, which was nearly 200 feet high, and dragged them into the sea. When they didn't return, the third keeper, Donald MacArthur, the one who left his oilskins behind, rushed out to find them and was also swept away. This explanation seems plausible on the surface. The North Atlantic is notorious for its rogue waves, but it doesn't quite add up. Why would 3 experienced keepers all go out together against regulations? Why would they venture down to the landing in dangerous conditions? And why would one of them go without his coat? These men knew the risks of the sea better than anyone. They were trained to be cautious, to follow protocol. Their actions seemed completely out of character. And so, alternative theories began to swirl, each more fantastic than the last. Some speculated that it was a case of murder-suicide. Perhaps the isolation and psychological pressure of life in the lighthouse drove one of the men mad. Maybe MacArthur, the tough guy, finally snapped. He could have killed the other 2 and then thrown himself into the ocean in a fit of despair. This might explain the overturned chair and the fear described in the logbook. But there was no evidence of a struggle, no bodies, and no weapon. Of course, given the island's local folklore, supernatural explanations were inevitable. Eilean Mor, which translates to Big Isle, had a reputation for being a strange, otherworldly place. It was sometimes called the Other Country by local shepherds, who believed it was inhabited by spirits or little people. They considered it bad luck to spend the night there. Had the keepers been taken by some ancient, malevolent force that haunted the island? Some have even suggested alien abduction, a sea serpent, or a ghost ship carrying the spirits of long-dead sailors. A more grounded theory suggests the men staged their disappearance. Perhaps they were in debt or running from something in their past and used the remote location as the perfect cover to escape and start new lives elsewhere. But again, where is the evidence? How would they have left the island without a boat? And why would they leave everything behind? It seems highly improbable. For more than a century, the fate of Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur has remained one of the greatest maritime mysteries in history. It has inspired poems, operas, songs, and even a Doctor Who episode. The story captures our imagination because it taps into our deepest fears, the fear of the unknown, the power of nature, and the fragility of the human mind when faced with absolute isolation. The official report might point to a rogue wave, but it leaves too many questions unanswered. The strange logbook entries, the untouched meal, the single set of oilskins left behind, these are details that logic struggles to explain. They create a puzzle with pieces that just don't fit together. Today, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse is automated. No keepers walk its lonely halls. But the mystery endures, locked away in the cold, stone tower and the relentless waves of the North Atlantic. Were they victims of a freak accident of nature? Did isolation push them to a tragic end? Or did they encounter something on that remote island that we can't even begin to comprehend? We may never know the truth. The Flannan Isles still hold their secret, a silent testament to 3 men who simply vanished from the face of the earth. What do you think happened to the keepers? Let me know your theories in the comments below. It's a mystery that continues to fascinate and haunt us. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy exploring the unexplained, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more dives into history's greatest unsolved cases. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.